We are Lisa and Yusef, a wife and husband team who started making movies together about 8 years ago. We've done web series, shorts, feature-length films, and documentaries. We've worked with zero budget, $5,000 budgets, everything in between. We've won awards, made some profits, and we've made a ton of mistakes along the way. And we'll show you how we did it and how you can do it too. Okay, so making it. This was around, I want to say, the spring of 2015. I was an active SAG member at the time, and SAG was hosting at the new school the two ladies from Broad City. I'm blanking on their names right now, but a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to go. I said yeah, and I checked with Yusef to see if he was free to go. He said yeah. And we went and we heard their whole process of how they got started, and it was very inspiring to us.
Yeah, at the time, Lisa was still trying to do the regular actor grind of going to auditions, trying to get a manager, etc. And I think she was kind of at the point where she thought, well, maybe she could just make her own stuff instead of waiting for someone else to cast her in something. And seeing the Broad City girls talk about their process and how it started as just a low-rent web series and then eventually went on to become a bigger thing was kind of motivating for the both of us to make something similar, at least in production quality.
And not only that, but this was really like the heyday of everybody making their own thing or just beginning to. It felt like it was a very novel concept at the time back in 2015. Like, hey, we've got these cameras, we can shoot everything on our own. We can make these $0 budget things, put them on the internet, and a ton of people will watch them. And the obvious best case scenario of that was Broad City, and to a certain extent, that was also the case with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And not only was I interested in making my own projects, I had written for myself before and shot, but I was very interested in working with Yusef because he had been a writer his entire life, and I knew him personally to be hilarious, and I wanted a way for us to work together and to harness his humor and imagination.
And I had never really done anything before as far as video or film or skits go. I always wanted to, but never did. I did watch Lisa make some indie shorts with her friends, and that kind of demystified the filmmaking process to me. So I figured, all right, well, maybe I can do it too. So all of that was kind of like the catalyst to why we wanted to make our first web series, which was Making It, which we made 7 years ago, I think, seven or 8 years ago. The idea that we had was just kind of loosely based on Lisa's real life of being an actor in New York who's originally from a small town in Louisiana, and all of the...
and also being a gig worker. That's such a big part of working as an actor in New York or any high cost of living area. It's like you get used to working 5-6 jobs at a time, and they are quite wacky, and you have insane encounters with people because of these jobs.
And another thing was the acting industry in New York is so big. There's so many people who are trying to get into acting that there's also a side industry of ripping off actors and taking advantage of them. I would bet just about most actors or aspiring actors in New York has gone through some version of getting ripped off or paying money to speak to someone who will never do anything for you, casting director, manager, etc. So, Lisa would tell me these stories about these things that happened to her, and I thought that would be good fodder for some sort of comedic series.
But I remember leaving that talk that day and feeling inspired and deflated at the same time. The inspiration was like, oh, they're just like us. That's kind of what they made it seem like. We're just like you. If we can do it, you can do it too. But then the deflated part was like, okay, how? Because up until that point, I had written for myself and a friend of mine had shot for us, but I had never shot anything on my own or done any of the technical aspects of making any kind of video.
So we set about writing a limited web series. I think the process was basically, I think maybe we took turns with coming up with story ideas, and
It was mainly Yusef's.
but well, I think you wrote the main like structure of the scripts, and then I went in afterwards and added some jokes and some ideas and stuff, and then
Really?
yeah, that's what I would remember it.
The way I remember it is, and it's really cool because we were living in an apartment in Bay Ridge at the time, which was continues to be my favorite neighborhood in Brooklyn. And Yusef and I would write, we would bring my laptop to the park. We would write in our apartment,
And
and
I would get really high too.
yeah,
I would usually be actively getting high as we were writing, because that's typically how the best writers do it. So
that's a joke. Yeah,
I was really high.
I know, but I don't. That's not a joke.
That's
but
not a
it's
joke.
not. It's not necessary at all. That was just your lifestyle.
No, like if
at
you
the
want to
time.
be a good writer, you would get high when you write. That's all I'm saying.
Right. So, yeah, so it was a very fun and collaborative process writing it. And we mapped out like how many, I mean, probably 6 to 8 episodes for the first season.
Yeah, so we came up with a four episode season. I think most of the scripts were just like seeing. It was mostly like you telling me the jokes were either too racist or homophobic,
Yeah.
and me trying to make them slightly less so. But we filmed the first episode in our apartment. We had a friend shoot it. You had another friend as the other act. Oh no, I'm sorry. The first episode was just you in the bathroom alone.
Yeah.
So that was like a really low rent
My friend
production.
shot that, right?
Your friend shot it on a DSLR camera that I
Yeah.
think gave us 1080p at 24 frames.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still think it's funny.
I think I had to go over and dub.
Yeah, we did
entire thing.
we did ADR for most of the series
Yeah.
because we were, forget about micro budget. This was like a $0 budget web series. So we didn't have proper audio equipment. We didn't have proper anything equipment. And instead of waiting around for that stuff, we just kind of wanted to do some things. So
I think we understood from the inception that this was going to be very low rent in all respects. And I don't think we had grand designs on, a la Broad City of like, oh, we'll get discovered by an Amy Poehler type who will want to pick us up, or, Danny DeVito will see the show and love it so much that he wants to come on. Like, I don't think we had massive aspirations like that, but we had this burning desire to make something for ourselves that independently of anybody else.
And I was okay with it kind of looking and sounding like shit, because I'm pretty sure the first season of Broad City also looked and sounded like shit. They just filmed it with like a smartphone or something.
Yeah.
And so, you can still... Things can still be funny, and you could still show good writing even if you don't have a nice camera or proper audio equipment. You could still show a little something.
Especially if it's a comedy. And I think that's what we focused on. We were like, okay, our strength is going to be Yusef's jokes and me pulling them off and all these visual gags. And it's okay if the audio is choppy and imperfect and the camera, the quality of it visually is very low, but
yeah, I rewatched them. It looks and it sounds really bad.
Oh yeah.
But I still feel like the jokes are funny, and there's even callback jokes, and the writing is, from a comedic perspective, like way more sophisticated than it has any business being, considering what it was, and especially considering the types of jokes. Like the first episode is basically one long fellatio joke over and over again. I think in the first episode, it's just you're still living in Louisiana and you're trying to find an apartment to move to in Brooklyn because you want to go move there and be an actor. And yeah, I think that was my first time ever directing, and it was my first time ever voice acting too. I think I did some really, really good voice acting in that one.
Dylan, you tell your brother McDermott I said stop fucking my sister.
What was it, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that, the first episode. And we were pretty happy with it. We did have some problem with editing. The same friend that shot it was also the same friend who edited it. And, it's tough working with an editor sometimes when you might not have the same vision, and, he's cutting out jokes and because he couldn't find a match cut, and we're like, who gives a shit? It's a funny joke. So that led us to the second episode, which was my first attempt ever at editing something, because we kind of didn't have the best experience having someone else edit for us in the first episode.
And then there was a moment where I picked up with editing, because I can't remember. It was probably time constraints. Like, both of us are working multiple jobs at this point and obviously not making any money off of this project. So we had to fit it in.
Making money working.
Yeah. And living in a very expensive city. And I remember how awful editing felt at first. And then I had my first light bulb moment and my first sequence that I thought was kind of funny. And it really, that lesson kind of encapsulates to me what making it was, which is, for me, it taught me that kind of soup to nuts, we can make an entire project on our own. And up until that point, I only thought I could write, direct, act, and maybe cast something or dress a set lightly and do costumes, but I never thought I could do any of the technical aspects of it. And out of necessity, we had to. And then I remember episode 3, that's my favorite episode, Abortion Cops Part 2.
Yeah, well, I want to just mention about the second episode is the intro to it was the very first thing that I had ever edited. And I still think it holds up. Like, it's a fun sequence. It's there's an ongoing joke in the series where your roommate is always appropriating other people's cultures.
This was pre-cancel culture.
Pre-Trump. It was pre-Trump.
Pre-Trump. So it was an environment that felt a lot freer in terms of being able to make riskier jokes. So I don't know, the whole series.
Although you could still do stuff like that, you just might not get any commercial success, or you might, but it might be, I don't know.
It's stuff that I don't think I would have.
It's a lot of racist stuff. Yeah. It's a lot of homophobic stuff. But I do want to say that, the actor in the third episode, who all of the gay jokes are aimed at, is a gay man, and he was totally cool with the jokes. He gave us the F word pass, so we ran with it. The second episode was the first episode that we had 2 people and multiple setups and multiple rooms and stuff like that, and it was a lot more complex than the first episode. And then the third episode kind of ratcheted up a bit. I think we had some effects, aka fake blood. And you started messing around with slow-mo and stuff like this. Lisa's a big fan of like slow-mo.
It's my signature.
It's her signature. It's, that's her Kubrick touch. Yeah, I like the third episode. I like the movie. I wish I could see the movie that they're watching, Abortion Cops Part 2.
Yeah.
I really, what's the last line in the thing that you guys are watching is like, the Planned Parenthood is safe. Or is it?
Planned Parenthood is safe for now. Or is it?
But yeah, that was a good episode.
We talk about a meeting at a party where I bartended, and it's funny because that was pulled exactly from a TaskRabbit gig that I had where I was bartending a Dios de los Muertos party in the Flatiron district, and it was supposed to be like 5 hours or something, but then it was a bunch of like finance bros, and they started busting out Coke, and then it was like, can you stay for another hour? Can you stay for another 2, 3, 4? And Yusef actually took the train and came to meet me there. And yeah, it's interesting looking back how true to life we were for such an absurd.
You didn't mention why you brought that up in the first place.
Because I said it was in the episode.
Well, you danced like a baby in the episode.
Oh yeah.
And
Is that from the party?
I saw a lady dancing like that at that party. And I think that's the link between that party and this episode.
No, and I say that I meet Lance. We pretended that.
Oh, you're pretending that you met him at a party that was like.
Yeah, that's how we wrote it. So we made it as if I met this guy that I thought was a potential hookup or something at this party. Turns out, spoiler alert, he's gay.
Yeah, he's gay, and we try to play up the country bumpkin aspect of Lisa, and like she doesn't even understand what gay means, and doesn't even know that Liberace is gay, even though you're describing Liberace when you say a gay guy, when you're describing a gay guy.
It's just very, very broad, pardon the pun.
Yeah, but that kind of set the stage for the last episode 4, which is we figured, well, how do we ratchet it up even more? Well, let's have 3 characters on screen at the same time instead of just 2. So Lance, the gay guy, returns, and so does your culturally appropriating roommate, but now she's pretending to be Japanese instead of Indian.
Yeah.
And that was like the first time we shot not in our apartment too. We shot in the elevator, which we got in trouble for in our building.
Big trouble.
Yeah, because whatever. If we don't want to get into it, but we got in trouble, and we shot in the lobby of our building, and just very slowly started to kind of branch out not branch out, but just raising the stakes for production design and stuff like that.
Especially because we had this the elevator was so cool.
We lived in a pre-war building, and the elevator was also pre-war. So it looked really cool, like an old hotel elevator.
And as soon as we toured the apartment, we were already talking about like how cool that elevator looked and how cool it might be to display it in a project of ours.
Yeah, but in retrospect, probably not a good sign if the best feature of your new apartment is the elevator. Yeah, I think that episode went well. We had a whole plan to like have an effect where you get sprayed with shit or something, but we went a different direction with that. And that was also our first episode not filmed by our friend, but rather filmed by someone that we hired.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we found a guy. Where'd you find Craigslist? Yeah, found a guy on Craigslist who would film in 4K for really cheap.
$50.
$50 for a whole day's work.
So I guess technically this was not zero budget. It was $50.
It was $50, and
we might have paid our actors.
I don't think so, but we might have gotten lunch or something, like pizza or something. But
and everything that we needed that we didn't have, we got from Amazon, and sorry, Daddy Bezos, we returned it.
Yeah, we're big believers in using Amazon as a prop department. So you should definitely do that if you're an indie filmmaker and you're worried about adding production design on a budget. That's the way to do it. Just buy shit from Prime and then return it. That was our first time working with a DP, and that was cool. He was really good. He brought all his own stuff. He set everything up. He brought his own diffusers and everything. And I think it was a good episode. It's got my favorite line of anything that we've done pretty much ever, which I'm not going to say now, but we could play the clip.
Don't leave me alone with that.
I would say that was a successful first season of a self-produced, almost zero budget comedic web series.
And now that I reflect on it in retrospect with all the experiences that would occur after, I feel very strongly, and I feel like if you listen to heed one thing in this episode only, it's this. I don't think you can make something good until you make something bad first. And that's not a revolutionary concept, but it really needs to be said because I've met so many super talented people, actors, writers, directors, and the difference in what they make or not is kind of a willingness to have egg on their face artistically. And I look back at making it, and there are some things that I'm really proud of, and there's other things that I'm kind of like but there are so many seeds that got planted during that whole process that would then become like the foundation of Yusef and I making films together.
Yeah, and if it further demystified the whole process of making stuff, and we were kind of like, oh, okay, we could make a season of a thing, and it kind of works all together, and okay, it looks like shit and it sounds like shit, but you can buy better footage and better audio, but you can't really buy good writing. So yeah, basically to echo what Lisa said, as a indie filmmaker without a lot of resources, you have to be comfortable with not your best stuff going out there into the world. And I think the key for us was always like just doing a little bit better with each successive project.
Specifically, okay, so Yusef and I starting off and not shooting it ourselves, right? Having somebody else shoot it, and then graduating to like, okay, well, we need to shoot some of this on our own. Did you shoot any of it, or was that?
I didn't shoot any of
No. Okay, so that would come later, but really the editing.
The next project we did, which we'll cover in the next episode, was the first thing we shot.
Yeah, but you know, out of necessity, both of us becoming familiar with editing, Yusef more than me, and forming such an appreciation for editing and how the cut is made in the edit. And if you don't have control over that, you kind of don't have control over your project.
Yeah, that's a big tip I would say, is like, if you're trying to make movies, just learn how to do everything. You won't always need to do everything, but you have to learn how to do everything starting out.
Well, and the thing is, this was so long ago that since then, you know, cameras on phones are so much better.
Yeah, this was before prosumer filmmaking stuff. This was before Pocket 4K camera. This was before Resolve software. We were using Sony Vegas to cut this shit.
Yeah. I remember at the time I was also shooting like YouTube stuff approximately around the time and editing on my Mac, but I guess the concept of like quick and dirty, very easy things to shoot, like going from phone to computer and you're done and putting it on YouTube, was still kind of foreign to me. And it still felt like YouTube wasn't like that massive of a place yet, or you know,
it was big, but there weren't, the rise of the YouTuber hadn't occurred yet.
Yeah.
So the rise,
it wasn't as polished.
Yeah, the rise of content didn't happen
right.
yet. The content explosion.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of these tips they're already outdated because so many people can like just shoot stuff on their phone and edit on their computer and they don't think twice about it, and it already looks a lot better than the stuff that we shot.
There are a lot of like indie filmmakers who are like, I gotta hire an editor, I gotta hire a DP, blah blah blah. Starting out, you really don't.
Yeah.
You do it yourself. It's not gonna be the best that it can be, but it's gonna be done, and it's gonna be a thing that you've made, and then you can learn from it and move on and make a better thing.
And I think what the specific thing that was so deeply inspiring about the Broad City Girls is that their writing and acting were at the top of the mountain for them, and everything else was secondary or even tertiary.
Well, yeah, they wrote stuff, they played to their own strengths.
Yes.
You know?
And so we came away from that talk feeling like if you can write well and you can act well, you can tell a really good story. And I think that was the empowering part to us, is like, oh, okay, we don't have to get caught up in the minutia of what kind of equipment do we have and what kind of technical skills. We have these creative skills that we've been honing our entire lives. Let's finally put them to use and put them on display, which for someone holed up in a scene study class for many, many years, doing my best work in front of, you know, just other students and my teacher, it was deeply gratifying to finally have a public display of my art, no matter how imperfect it was. And so it felt, the entire experience of making it felt very triumphant in that respect, and empowering that from conception to execution, we finished this thing. Well, we didn't shoot the entire season, but we shot the main episodes of the season that we wrote. And later on, we would go on to use that camera person. We would use our editing skills that we honed. We would still use Amazon and quick and dirty ways of shooting out in public.
Yeah, really, the same stuff that we learned making it was the foundation of the same stuff, the same knowledge that we used to make our last movie, Gem Mint, which is a full length that's streaming on Prime now. That actually makes us money.
Yeah.
So I guess the moral of that whole first thing that we made is, it's an age-old trope in filmmaking, but it's just do the thing, just make the thing. Don't worry so much about making it perfect. Just make it. Man, what's the guy's name?
Do the thing and you shall have the power, right? Is it?
Well, yeah, but what's the guy from The Room? Tommy Wiseau.
Oh, man.
Tommy Wiseau has a great tweet about this. Someone tweeted at him once, any tips for writing a screenplay? And he just tweeted back at them the word start. So I think
Man, that's unexpected. Like,
well, he could be
wisdom
pretty deep when he wants to be, but that's pretty much the moral of that is just start and do the thing, finish it, and do the next thing better.